Okay, before we dive into each report, I'm going to show you the mechanics of how to manipulate each report that you might come across in a Google Analytics account. This is just so that you know how to use each report effectively and that you can analyze your data as efficiently as possible. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is a date picker. Now, this might be pretty self-explanatory, but in the top right-hand corner, you can change the dates that that's being displayed in your view here in the main chart and also in all of the information below. So if we want to adjust it, you can go back as far back as you have Google Analytics installed. So we're just going to say November 13th through April 30th, and you click apply, and then the data will change down here accordingly. Also, if you want to compare your data, you have options to either compare it to previous periods, if you have specific date ranges that you want to apply those comparisons to. But really, most of the time, what you're going to do is either use previous period or previous year. If you want to analyze year-over-year data to see if maybe the data that you're looking at is cyclical, or if you have cyclical sales cycles for tourism, or certain times of the year are more profitable for you, say Christmas if you're a e-commerce store, you can do that pretty easily here. And then another option, you can do custom and just compare dates to other dates for whatever use case that you have that you might want to look at that information for. So that's the date picker. Okay, next up we're going to go over some of the options that Google provides to export your data. The first tab on the top underneath Audience Overview, you'll see the email option, and you can determine who you want to send the email report to, the subject line, the type of attachment or file type that you want to send that as, the frequency, so you can determine once, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and the day of week that you want that send. Add a personal message if you want. This is your report. And then you can keep it active for however long you want, up to 12 months. And this really makes it easy if you're trying to send it to clients on a regular basis or internal stakeholders. It helps to automate the process fairly easily. Next, you can just export it if it's for one-time use. It has a bunch of different file types. It makes it easy to export it to Google Spreadsheets too if you are a Google Docs user. And then you can add it to a dashboard. We're going to walk through how to use the dashboard, but really easy option to just add it right there, and you can add each report as a shortcut. Okay, next, underneath the export tabs, right now we're in the audience overview, but you'll see this main overview chart. There's a couple of cool options that you can do and that you can use to analyze your data pretty quickly in this snapshot type chart. The default view is going to be page views. You can change this pretty easily. Say if you want to view sessions or users, just change this in the drop down tab. If you want to compare different metrics, so say we want to have users and page views, it'll display both of them and it kind of overlays the two charts together. And then I'm going to X out of this to remove that, and then you can add a segment too. So say you want to compare all sessions to sessions that made a purchase, and that's helpful to compare the different types of data. Actually, I don't want to do users, I just want to do sessions. And then you can see that there, and then in each of these boxes underneath and in the pie charts on the right, you'll see the data in comparison with each other, and you can see this is already a really cool piece of information that you'll see a difference in is all sessions, the average pages per session is 2.7, but people that made a purchase is more than 3 times that. So that is a really good opportunity to say, hey, I need to keep people on my site as much as possible, keep really engaged content, really custom tailored content to people to keep them around longer, because that will increase the likelihood that they make a purchase. So right there, already a good piece of information that you can find just by comparing two different pieces of data over each other. This might be a fairly simple explanation, but there's a way to compare the data. The default view is day, but if you look on the tabs on the right hand side of the chart, you'll see day kind of imprinted. If you change it to hourly, you can take a look at that. And looking at data hourly usually isn't that helpful, but say if you're running a TV spot, or if you're running ads at a certain time of day, you want to be able to measure traffic during those time periods. That's a really important use case for that. But if you're looking at your data and trying to make important decisions and decisions that might have a long-lasting effect, almost always recommend taking a step back and going to at least a week view, but most of the time it's going to be a month. You want to compare months, kind of month over month data, and you can see this is trending upward, which is a good look for this website in particular. But that is just a really easy way to look at your data from different standpoints in time. Okay, after the time tabs, I'm going to show you how to make an annotation. Now, this is something that not everybody uses, not everybody knows is actually a feature in Google Analytics, but it can be helpful, especially if you have a lot of people collaborating on one Google Analytics account, or if you're making changes over months or years and you want to be able to go back and reference changes that you've made or important events that happened on your website. So if you click this little arrow underneath the chart, and you'll see a plus sign with create new annotation, you can add something. I'm going to change the date here, say for Tuesday, December 3rd. Let's make that Tuesday, December 3rd, and say big 50% off sale on shoes. So you can say that just if you want to go back and see why that spike occurred, and you can either make it shared or private. Again, if you're sharing information on your Google Analytics account and you want to share it with coworkers, make it shared. If not, if it's just a personal note that you want to make, you can make that decision as well, and then you can decide to star it if it's extra important for you. If that's an easy way for you to monitor what happened, that's an option too. Then you just click save, and then if you go back, you can click this arrow back up to hide. But every time that you go back and look at that date on any report from now on, there will always be this little annotation box underneath that you can click and say, oh, I wonder what that spike was for, and you can click it and it will show you right here, big 50% off sale, or sale on shoes, and it's private, and you can see who made the annotation. You can edit it if necessary. All right, moving on along, if you scroll down the page, you'll see some of these boxes that I referenced earlier with data in the comparison. I'm going to remove that segment to clean it up a little bit for you, but you'll see sessions, user, page view, pages per session, and some other metrics down here, as well as a pie chart, and you'll see returning versus new visitors, and it will show you also the languages, country and territory, city, and browser, operating system. You can go through, and we're going to go through all of these reports and what all this information means and how you can use it. But for this, I'm just going to show you how to open a full report. So for this instance, I'm just going to keep it on country territory and then click view full report. And once you view the full report, you'll see for this specific report, it's going to be a map, and you can click into each of these if you want, say for the United States, and it will show you a breakdown by state. But the important information that I'm going to show you for this chart and show you how to use is underneath. So you'll see the main dimension, which is the region. Because I clicked into the United States, it's going to show me actually the region for the United States. We use states, so it will show you that information, and then it will group the metrics by acquisition, behavior, and conversions, and you can toggle between goals or e-commerce depending on what your site uses. But each of these has metrics underneath it, and you can sort by each. So if you want to sort by new users, just click that, or if you want to sort bottom to top, you can do that as well. And then if you want a deeper dive into that information, let's just sort by top sessions, top to bottom. California is sending the most right now. Let's click into California, and it will go even deeper into that piece of information. We can see that Los Angeles is sending the most out of all of the cities inside of California. But if we click into Los Angeles again, it's going to go even deeper, and it will give us a better idea of where exactly that radius is, and we can look more into that information here, what kind of transactions, what kind of revenue, etc. Now I'm going to back out of that report, but if you see there's a breadcrumb underneath this, the main title of this report, and you can see right now we're in the city Los Angeles, but I want to go back to country, territory. Actually, I'm going to go back to all, so that will take me right back to the beginning of the report that we showed earlier. And I'm going to walk through these Explore tabs. So right now, the map overlay, it's going to have a summary. You can break it down by site usage, which changes the metrics here based on country, territory, the goal set for e-commerce. So it's just giving you different snapshots of data and what your preference is. And then you can go to the Explorer. So this is going to give you that traditional like chart line chart rather than the map overlay, and you can toggle between those Explore sessions too. And then just like we showed in the other video, that you can add a segment. So we want to see direct traffic, or actually let's say all sessions and made a purchase. You can apply that, and the data will be overlaid on top of each other, and then underneath in the chart it will show you all sessions versus made a purchase, and you can make a comparison there as well. Now once you're in the line graph and you're out of the map overlay, again, just the geo-targeting is going to be the only report that's going to use that map overlay as an option. But the default view is going to be, as you see here, it's going to be the data tab. There's a couple of different options that we're going to go through in a second, but I just want to highlight a few things that I didn't touch on earlier when looking at this chart. So the primary dimension is determined here in this top tab. You can change that by city, like how I did earlier. I just clicked into it, but you can change that too by the top tab, and you can change it by continent, city, subcontinent, region. It just depends on how you're analyzing your data and what's important for you. But if we go back to country territory, we can add a secondary dimension, and we can add something like, let's see something that will be really useful for us to look at real quick. Let's say we'll just go back to source medium, and we'll see who's sending the most traffic by country and then by source and medium. So right now the United States is kind of taking it from all of the sources, but Google organic traffic from the United States is our top performing from a sessions basis, because right here this is what the data is being sourced from. But if we want to change that and we want to say, I want to see what the top country and territory by source medium is performing by transaction, we'll sort it that way, and it's still the same, but we see some other options here. The Google CPC or AdWords cost per click, whatever you want to call it, makes a jump there. And then if we want to view more options, we can go all the way down to 5,000 rows. But for this example, just going to go to 100. You can view all those 100 options and sort through all of this data. And then you can go to the next page if you want to look at even more information. Now we're going to go into the pie chart, but first I'm going to cancel out of this secondary dimension, X out of that, give me back to a normalized view, click sessions, and then I'm going to click right next to this, so you'll see the data tab, and then we're going to go into the percentage tab. I call it the pie chart tab because that's really what you get the most out of here, and it's going to be just a different way to visualize your data. You can use this drop down to sort by, say, bounce rate might give us something different, and not the view that I wanted to see, but transactions. We can see right here, almost 75% of the transactions are coming from the United States. You can see other is 16%, Canada about 4%, and again, it's just a different way to look at your information and look at your data. And I'm going to change this to transactions too. It's actually 92%, sorry about that, but the contribution to the total is the tab that you want to change there. But if you do want to look at your information this way, go ahead and try it out and see if you can get some actionable pieces of data from looking at the information this way. All right, after the pie chart, we're going to go one tab over into the performance chart. And as you can see, the default view again is going to be sessions, and you can see 74%, almost 75% of the total sessions are coming from the United States, but we can change that if we want to. Let's go to transactions. It's that same information that we saw. You're still seeing the sessions here in the numerical view, but in the overall performance view, you'll see it broken down by percentage basis, and then we can actually sort it by transactions. If we change this tab here, and it's sorted by transactions from the top down, you'll see the percentage basis. Again, not the best example here, and this is actually not that uncommon of an example because this is an e-commerce store that sells primarily in the United States. There are some international shipping, but it costs more, so you're not going to see as many people buying from the store. But if you are an international retailer, this number will be a lot different. You'll be able to get more information from here. But as we get into some of the other reports, knowing how to use these reports will be a lot more beneficial than the territory report. I'm just using this again as a way to show you how to use each report. The next chart, and this is something I use more often than say the pie or performance chart, because I think it's interesting to see how different pieces of data are performing in comparison to site averages. So for sessions, for instance, like I just mentioned, in the United States, almost all is driving almost all the traffic and revenue and transactions. So that information not going to be that helpful. But one thing that will be helpful is average pages per session. So something that's on an average basis, like a per session basis, you'll get to see interesting information. So as we see here, the United States is not really the clear winner. It's 4% higher than the site average, and you can see Canada, the United Kingdom, way below site averages. But then you see that Russia and Brazil, wow, they're outperforming by a lot, and you want to wonder why those specific countries are performing better in comparison. And then we can go to something even somewhat similar to bounce rate, and you'll see that the United States has a lower bounce rate, which is actually good. And if you have any questions about any of the metrics that we're going over, I'll provide a link, and you can always just search Google Analytics metrics and dimensions, and there'll be a full breakdown of everything you want to know if you're not familiar with some of these terms already. But as you can see here, useful for this, and also going to be extremely useful once we start diving into like the acquisition tabs on the left hand side of the reports, the behavior, the conversions, and things like that. Okay, the last chart I'm going to show you is the pivot tables tab right here. It's the last one on the far right. And if you are familiar with Excel, you know how powerful pivot tables can be. It's really powerful and provides really actionable data that you might not have thought of by using one metric and pivoting on another metric. So right here you're seeing right here on the left, United States, it's actually just being pivoted on itself. But we're going to do something more useful than that. So the primary dimension right here, you can see country, territory, but we don't want to pivot on itself. I'm going to use something, scroll down here, and again, if you have questions about these dimensions, just hover over the question mark and it will give you an example or a definition, and you can always click learn more about if they do have a deeper definition that it can't all fit in the little pop-up module. But I'm going to use the user type, and I'm going to use sessions and add another pivot metric. I'm going to use transactions. Actually, I'm going to use e-commerce conversion rate. So I want to compare by country and territory the conversion rate of new versus returning visitors. It's going to take a minute because it does have a lot of numbers to crunch, but you can see how cool this stuff can be. It will show you the total, 15,000 sessions, almost a 2.5 conversion rate. But then it will show you the first metric, or the first user type, and the second user type, which is returning visitors. And you can see returning visitors have over a 1% higher conversion rate, which tells me that something like maybe remarketing ads that serve ads to people that have already been on your site might be useful, or email campaigns, anything that you can do to get people, these returning visitors, back because they have a higher propensity to buy something. And that's pretty much, looks like it's the same across the board. This is an interesting one. Germany has a 0% conversion rate, so no transactions, but a 3% conversion rate on returning visitors. So getting people back to this site in particular is extremely powerful. And I'll give you a link to some other ways that you can use pivot tables on different reports that can be helpful based on your website type or what you're doing or what your goals are. But there's really cool things that you can do, and I know I'm using really a lot, but pivot tables are definitely a way that you can find those really nice pieces of information to develop a strategy based on. Before we dive into the reports, I want to show you one more thing that I use a lot, and I think you can get a lot out of too. So I'm going to go back to the main data chart and show you how to use the search function. So let's click into the United States and say you want to find state. So say you want to say New York. You just put it in the search box, and as you can imagine, New York would come up. I can click into it, see the different states like we showed earlier. But I'm going to go back, use the breadcrumbs like I showed you earlier. earlier, then show you the advanced search. So this is something when you're going into your reports, and if you're saving a shortcut, if you have a search that you use a lot, that's a good way to use this. But I want to include, let's say, e-commerce conversion rate that's greater than, let's go 2. And I can click apply, and it will show me all of the countries and territories that have a conversion rate higher than 2. I can go into the United States, and it will show me all of the, I'm going to do another search. So let's do e-commerce conversion rate, and then I'm going to add another one with total sessions over, let's go 400. So you can add all of these different search parameters on top of each other to really filter the data and find maybe the best performing, maybe it's the worst performing, or maybe it's specific pieces of information that you want to find. And I'm going to click 2 again, click apply, and it will sort that data accordingly. So we only have 9 states that meet those parameters of a conversion rate higher than 2 and sessions higher than 400, I believe I put. Yep, so click apply, and then we can sort the data just like I showed earlier, by transactions, by revenue. California, Texas, and Illinois clearly performing best, but again, really a lot of reallys, but a lot of cool things that you can do with these searches. And if you want to, like I said, just add the shortcut, conversions, can't spell, conversion states, click OK, and then if you go into the shortcuts, you can take a quick tab into that report. All right, before we jump into all the reports, I just want to walk through the admin section in Google Analytics. There's a few things that I want to make sure that you're aware of when you're going through your account, because they might come up later on when you want to adjust settings, and just make sure that everything is running smoothly as possible for your account. So I'm going to go through the account, the property, and the view settings all in the admin section. Then we'll jump right in when you go into your actual account dashboard to be able to determine it from other accounts, from other settings that you might have if you are managing multiple Google Analytics accounts. And then there's data sharing settings that you can enable to share your data with other Google products, share it anonymously with Google to help them kind of improve the product. I always kind of check that. And then if you do want to give access to technical support on Google's end, you can check that. That's helpful if you're talking to a support person and maybe they can't and they can, if you enable this, they can go in and dive in to your exact account and see what's going on hands-on. And then you can give access to account specialists, and then just some other legal things you have to opt into. And then I'm going to discard my changes for right now. And then if you want to give people access to your overall account, usually don't advise this unless it's like in a company. So if you want to give access to everybody in your company of all the properties and views inside of your account, that's doable. But if you're managing multiple websites within an account, you don't want everybody to have access to every individual website's analytics, then you're not going to want to do this. But if you do, you can just add somebody's email, just put in Corey@Corey.com, and then you can adjust the settings based on how much access you want them to be able to see. So if it's a client or if it's maybe a contract or something like that, Read and Analyze is a great option for that. Just allows them to log into the account and look at the information. Collaborate is one step of more access there, and then Edit. Obviously, you can jump in, edit information in the account, set up filters, name different types of search functions and things like that, set up reports, set up sending of reports, and then managing users is the highest level of access, and they can come in here and add different permissions for new email addresses. And then once you set all that up, you can notify the user by email and just let them know that they do have access. So that's all available in the account, property, and view section. And then next up, I'm going to discard my changes again, all filters. The one thing to keep in mind with all filters, or with the filters tab, is that almost everybody should do is when you go into your filter, I'm just going to say call it my IP. And what this does is you can exclude traffic from certain sources, certain areas, certain regions. There's a whole list of things that you can exclude traffic from so it doesn't muddle up your data. The one thing that almost everybody should do is exclude your IP address or your office's IP address, because you don't want to be making decisions based on information of internal traffic. People from your company searching on your website are going to have a different mindset and different goals when they're looking on it, mostly just for edits or things to fix or new ideas to test, rather than people that are searching for, coming to your website and looking to buy something or contact you or whatnot. So when we go on to the filter, I'm going to say traffic from IP address, and then if you want to, you can say find my IP, and it'll tell you your IP address right there. But you can go ahead and block that, and then you can apply the filters to views. So I have a view set up for my website, and then I can add that filter to that selected view. And then the last thing I want to touch on in the account section is the change history. So I can see who's been added to the account, who's been granted access, who's accepted, and then other changes like the filters will be in here, and other things that you add to the account. So it's helpful to see if there are multiple people in your account and you notice something a little bit different. You can see who made the change, when the change was made, and what that particular change was. Okay, next up is the Shortcuts tab. Now, Shortcuts is right underneath Dashboards, and shortcuts are really useful for, again, jumping in between data that you might look at frequently, but you don't want to dive into it. This is an example that I have here. Yours is not going to be populated if you don't have any shortcuts set up. It might just show you how to set it up or provide you with a learn more link. But while Dashboards is something for really like an overview of data, shortcuts are for really granular pieces of data that you look at frequently and don't really want to take the time to set the parameters or set the specifications on the report every single time. So it's an easy way to just jump into a certain report. So right here, as an example, I have one set for referral traffic over 100 visits. So if I click that, rather than setting all of those specifics, I can just jump into the report, see all of my referral traffic that is over 100 total visits. If you want to set this up and set up a shortcut for a report, it's really easy. For an example, I'll just go into all traffic, and then I will set a different, let's say, revenue that's greater than 100 and visits greater than 50. So I apply that. I know we haven't gotten into these reports yet, but this is just to show you an example of how to set a shortcut. So after all of that is pulling properly and the filter's on, then you just click shortcut, and then you can name it over 50, click OK, and then you scroll back up to your shortcuts, and it'll just be displaying here in the list, and then I can click all traffic over 50, same list, and it will show me that information so I don't have to add those parameters each time. So that's how you add shortcuts, and that's a quick overview of how to use shortcuts. After we go through the organic keywords, the next on the list is cost analysis. Now, cost analysis requires you to upload your cost data. And what it does is allows you to analyze non-Google paid search or other advertising that you may be using that you do have costs information for. Say if you're using Bing ads or a retargeting platform like Adderall or something like that, you can upload your cost data and then associate that cost with those specific channels. So for this account, I don't have them uploaded, so I'm going to skip this for the most part, but if you want to, it's a relatively similar report that you would see in the keyword analysis. It just lets you pull cost data from sources that Google can't pull by itself. So we'll go right into AdWords. Now you're going to have your AdWords account connected to your Google Analytics account to have this report enabled. But as you can see, there's a lot of different options that are enabled for AdWords, and if you are using cost per click advertising or paid search, this is a really helpful report, and I spent a lot of time in this report to find pieces of information that get those campaigns better and deliver a better return. So just jumping right in, for the campaigns, you'll see them split in just like you would see in your AdWords account, and you can see what campaigns are sending the most traffic. For the most part, there's only one campaign running at this time. If you want to go back further, you could see that. Conversion rate, really important. Pages per session, and you can get all of this data in AdWords, but for the most part, if you're going to be looking at analytics on a daily basis, it's a lot easier to just use one platform to measure your data rather than jumping back and forth, or at least for me, it is helpful. Another cool thing that you can do in here is view the data based on the device type. So you can see how it's performing on desktop versus mobile, or if you just want to see mobile, you can do that as well, and you can see that pages per session is lower, average session duration is lower. You can go to the ad group inside of the campaign. So these are, if you're familiar with AdWords, this is just a one step down from a campaign is the ad group, and that's how you can you group some of your campaigns, and then you can see which are performing the best. Now, moving into bid adjustments, I don't want to get too technical into AdWords because this is a Google Analytics account, but if you are familiar with AdWords, you'll see that the bid adjustment for each device type, it will show you here and how that's performing. AdWords keywords, this is showing you the actual keywords that you have in your campaigns and how they're performing. Really granular look to see what is performing the best, and you can see here like the conversion rate. If I was running this campaign, the Makita parts, I would say, wow, that maybe we should try to expand that campaign to see if we can get more traffic from that keyword, since it is performing so well on a e-commerce conversion rate standpoint, and just try to drive that revenue up. So the keywords, if you're familiar with match types, there's broad, paid, or there's broad, exact, and phrase match. So this is the actual searches that triggered ads, not the keywords that are in your AdWords campaign. So you can see that Makita parts, just that 2-word search is driving a huge amount of your conversions and a really high conversion rate. So that might be something where you can expand out to look for different variants of that keyword. Then next up is the hour of day. So as it says, this is the hour starting at 12, moving all the way down through the end of the day, ending at the 11 o'clock hour. And you can see how it's performing. And if you are running an AdWords campaign, you can specify your ads to run at certain times of the day. A good use case for this, say, is if you're a restaurant, you want to focus on your lunch rush. If you want to say, hey, let's just run ads from 9 a.m. until 11:30 or 1 p.m. To really capitalize on driving traffic in during those lunch hours, that would be a good use case. Or if time, you don't want to be running ads when they're not converting. Let's see if we can find some good information here. Let's sort e-commerce conversion rate traffic from the top down. You can see mostly looks like people are shopping and converting later in the day rather than earlier. There are some instances where that might not be the case, like 3, but again, this is all set to your admin or set in your admin, so this is based off of your time that you have set this. So this might be I think this is mountain time, so you just have to take that in consideration. If you're getting traffic from the UK, the time is going to be different, so don't just jump into conclusions without taking into consideration the different time zones. Next up, you can see day of the week. So this is really helpful. You'll see huge spikes and drops from the weekdays to the weekends. If you're a B2B company, you almost see no traffic or conversions. For here, it seems to be pretty spread out because it's an e-commerce site. You see people shopping pretty much consistently throughout the week. No real peaks or valleys. You start to see it go down from Sunday on, but no huge jumps that you would see in some other verticals. Next, the destination URL. So this is where clicks are being sent after clicking on an ad, also called a landing page. You can see which ones are performing well. I spend a lot of time in this report specifically because it's really good to get click-throughs to your ads, but you want to make sure that you're sending them to the right page. So here, the Makita parts doing great, just a good example of how to use this would be just to jump into that page, see what's different on that page in comparison to some of these ones that might be underperforming. For instance, say this store page. So that's more of like a overall category page that's pretty normal to see a low conversion rate there. But some of these ones that are specific, like why they're not converting well, it might have something to do with the keywords that are sending them there, or the landing page in general. So that's an opportunity to look for those look for improvements. Next up is placements. So these are all automatic placements. If you're running on the display network or on some of the Google Partner Network, you'll see different placements here, but these are all automatic, and that's not being populated right now. Then keyword positions is another important thing. If you want to see what positions are performing the best, you click into the keyword DeWalt parts. You see that the top one has only been showing up once. Top two, pretty much the majority of the time, and then in the side you'll see how many times that they've been shown. You've gotten clicks from those specific positions. Most of the time you're going to see higher ROI for the top three positions, but again, not always the case. You'll see lower cost for these lower positions, but again, sometimes they can still convert. And then if you have any video campaigns running, this is where you'll see that information. One different stat that you'll see in here is the cost per view rather than the cost per click. So you're seeing how much it's costing you to see that, or for each person to see that. But that pretty much wraps up the AdWords section. All right, next up is the behavior tab. If you expand the behavior tab, you're going to see new versus returning, frequency versus recency, and then engagement. So first, let's start with new versus returning. Some insights that you can gain from new versus returning visitors is somebody gonna purchase something when coming to my site for the first time? So if you're, again, to go back to advertising, if you are using remarketing ads and you see a ton of your returning visitors are buying traffic, you might say, hey, let's increase the spend on that, because most likely people aren't going to purchase on the first time. And you as an internet consumer probably know that once you find something that you like, you're still going to go out and look for that affirmation of people saying, okay, this is a good product, or look for reviews. And here you can see on this website, it's following that same trend. So returning visitors are converting almost twice as high. Even though it's a quarter of the traffic, it's sending almost the same amount of revenue, 43% to 56%. 30% of the total transactions. Average session duration is almost double. Pages a session is higher, bounce rates lower. So all of these numbers are pointing to the fact that they should try to be getting people back to the site. That's a common issue. New visitors, again, like the first time you landed on a website, say eBay for instance, or Amazon, even if it's the most trustworthy site, you're still going to look for reviews and not buy something the first time for the majority of the times that you go to a site for the first time. So this can really give you that insight that you're looking for. Next, going into frequency and recency. So you can see how many sessions that people are using your website. So count of sessions, you can see 21,000 people are using it only one time. And then we go all the way down to 50 people have came to this website over 100 times. So that's just seeing how sticky your content is, how often you can get people back. So maybe your content site, you're going to see this number a lot more evenly distributed, because if people are interested in your content, they're going to come back and read it every day or at least once a week, and you'll see the count of sessions. And then you'll see days since last session. Now, this for this report, it says 0 days since last session, meaning they're coming back multiple times in one day or just aren't coming back at all. And then you see a spike here between 18 and 14 and 15 and 30, where people maybe viewed something one day and then almost a month later are saying, I need to go back and purchase that item I saw. It's the best price I've seen, or seems like the most trustworthy site. And you can start to use some deduction for these reports. Not a ton of really super actionable information, but the count of sessions is a good barometer to use if you're looking at how sticky your content is. And then lastly, engagement. How long people are spending per session on your site. So right here, looks like about the average. We could do a report to run this, but anywhere between a minute and 2.5 minutes is showing is where most people or most sessions are spending. And then you can go and click into page depth, and you can see how many pages on average people are visiting per session and the page views associated with that. So page depth less than 1, that just means the page didn't completely load. And then if we go to page depth for 1, that just means they viewed 1 page. That was enough for them for that session. And then scrolling all the way down, you're going to want to see this higher, most likely, because that means people are interested in what you have, whether that's a product or a service, are looking for more information, or maybe they're finding the information the first time and purchasing. But if you're looking to work on your conversion rate, definitely want to see this number get higher. All right, next up is the behavior tab. If you expand the behavior tab, you're going to see new versus returning, frequency versus recency, and then engagement. So first, let's start with new versus returning. Some insights that you can gain from new versus returning visitors is somebody gonna purchase something when coming to my site for the first time? So if you're, again, to go back to advertising, if you are using remarketing ads and you see a ton of your returning visitors are buying traffic, you might say, hey, let's increase the spend on that, because most likely people aren't going to purchase on the first time. And you as an internet consumer probably know that once you find something that you like, you're still going to go out and look for that affirmation of people saying, okay, this is a good product, or look for reviews. And here you can see on this website, it's following that same trend. So returning visitors are converting almost twice as high. Even though it's a quarter of the traffic, it's sending almost the same amount of revenue, 43% to 56%, 30% of the total transactions. Average session duration is almost double. Pages a session is higher, bounce rates lower. So all of these numbers are pointing to the fact that they should try to be getting people back to the site. That's a common issue. New visitors, again, like the first time you landed on a website, say eBay for instance, or Amazon, even if it's the most trustworthy site, you're still going to look for reviews and not buy something the first time for the majority of the times that you go to a site for the first time. So this can really give you that insight that you're looking for. Next, going into frequency versus recency, so you can see how many sessions that people are using your website. So count of sessions, you can see 21,000 people are using it only one time, and then we go all the way down to 50 people have came to this website over 100 times. So that's just seeing how sticky your content is, how often you can get people back. So maybe your content site, you're going to see this number a lot more evenly distributed, because if people are interested in your content, they're going to come back and read it every day or at least once a week, and you'll see the count of sessions. And then you'll see days since last session. Now, this for this report, it says 0 days since last session, meaning they're coming back multiple times in one day or just aren't coming back at all. And then you see a spike here between 18 and 14 and 15 and 30, where people maybe viewed something one day and then almost a month later are saying, I need to go back and purchase that item I saw. It's the best price I've seen, or seems like the most trustworthy site. And you can start to use some deduction for these reports. Not a ton of really super actionable information, but the count of sessions is a good barometer to use if you're looking at how sticky your content is. And then lastly, engagement. How long people are spending per session on your site. So right here, looks like about the average. We could do a report to run this, but anywhere between a minute and 2.5 minutes is showing is where most people or most sessions are spending. And then you can go and click into page depth, and you can see how many pages on average people are visiting per session and the page views associated with that. So page depth less than 1, that just means the page didn't completely load. And then if we go to page depth for 1, that just means they viewed 1 page. That was enough for them for that session. And then scrolling all the way down, you're going to want to see this higher, most likely, because that means people are interested in what you have, whether that's a product or a service, are looking for more information, or maybe they're finding the information the first time and purchasing. But if you're looking to work on your conversion rate, definitely want to see this number get higher. Okay, since we went through the mechanics of Google Analytics reports and we ran through the admin section, I'm going to start at the very top on the left-hand side of the page and work my way down through the different reports. So starting with dashboards, that's going to be the first thing that you see right underneath the search bar. And sometimes you'll see a public option underneath dashboards, but for me, for this account, I don't have anything that's set to public, so all my dashboards are private. And dashboards are really helpful if you have information that you only want to see a snapshot of. Maybe if you're checking into Google Analytics once a day, but you really don't need to look at all of the granular data that it provides on a daily basis. You just want a snapshot. Or maybe you're sending this to clients or your boss or investors, and they want to see just really broad data numbers that that might be your KPIs. So this is more just general statistics that don't really mean much yet, but you can really easily customize it. So if I want to compare to the previous period, click apply. If I want to customize my dashboard and make it look different, you can change the layout options and click save. If I want to add different segments in there, like converters or direct traffic, I can do that as well. And then that will start displaying on the chart and starting to look more like a chart that means something. And you can scroll down and see the different values that it's showing right now. If you do want to export this, you can really easily export it to PDF for email or for printing out and bringing it to a meeting. If you want to email it on a regular basis, you can set the frequency, set who it's sent to, and the day of the week, and then also advanced options for how long you want that send to be active for, up to 12 months. If you want to customize it even further, you can add a widget. So say if I want to do a timeline, and I will add a metric for, let's find something that could be useful. Let's see, new visits, the timeline, and then I'm going to click save. And then there we go, and that's the data. Another really important thing to know in the dashboard section, and something that can save you a ton of time, so you click new dashboard and you want to create something like a starter dashboard, which is basically what I just showed you, a blank canvas, so you can add all of the widgets and metrics that you want from scratch, which can take a lot of time, but if you have specific things that you want to look at, that's helpful. But one thing that I want to point out is importing from gallery. So the gallery is something that you're going to see a couple of times when I'm going over these reports, and basically what it is are collections of segments, reports, dashboards that people have put together, and they allow other people to use them. So this top one you can see has been used by 37,000 people, and you can go down accordingly, and all of these are pretty popular. I've used a good amount of them, and it really does, like I said, save a lot of time. You can sort by latest, highest rating, most popular, and then sort by category. So if you're looking for a mobile report, maybe you're an e-commerce company, you want to see how mobile traffic is doing in comparison to desktop traffic, you can search by that. But something I'm going to show you real quick is the social media dashboard. So you click, all you have to do is click import. It'll give you an option to change the name. You select what account you want to show, click create, and then that dashboard is right there underneath this category setting, and you can see what percentage of your new visitor acquisition is from social, all of these interesting social media statistics that would have taken you a lot of time to put together, not just in thoughtfulness, but in thinking about how to actually get that exact data into a chart and being displayed correctly. So really helpful information. The top 3 or 4 dashboards that show up there in the gallery I definitely recommend at least adding them to your account for a little bit, play around with them and see if they provide you with any interesting information. So that's it for the dashboards. Okay, here's the demographics overview. And like I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a special Google Analytics code enabled in your account and on your website to get this data into your account. But if you do, this is what it's going to look like. Now, not everybody is going to be provided in this data because based on browser type or security settings, they're not going to be passing this information, just kind of like some keyword data that we're going to get into too. Not everybody is going to give this information, but even so, you'll get a pretty good sample size. So as you can see here, that about 28% of total sessions are passing data, and here it's about 29. You can see the breakdown of male to female, the age range, so we're skewing pretty well, almost over 50% of are 25 to 34, and we can change that to bounce rate. We can change this to pages per session to see what age group is the most engaged, percentage of new sessions, cool stuff that you can do with this data. And then you can also add a segment if we want to go into converters. Take off all sessions, click apply. Might take a minute for it to run here, but once it does, it will show that data rather than the session data, and it will show based on converters. So let's go here. It's not pulling it up here now, but that's something that you can play around with too. Then you can click into each report and play with the charts, see how many transactions, what the conversion rates are on those transactions, pages per session to see again how engaged each age group is. So if you say here 35 to 44 are actually 65 plus is our highest converting, but doesn't send that much traffic. For the ones that do send in the top 3 traffic tiers right here, that this has the highest conversion rate. So if I had to choose one to run an ad campaign, that I would probably pick that one. And then gender, same thing, same type of report, male, female, and you'll be able to see the average session duration is higher for males, higher revenue opportunities there. And then lastly, for this quick screencast is the interests. So for the overview, it will show you a breakdown of the affinity categories, in-market segments, and other categories. The affinity categories is basically determined on what other sites that they're on. So technophiles, people that are into technology, movie lovers, self-explanatory, shutterbugs, people that are into photography, TV lovers. And that again gives you an idea of either building personas of who your ideal customer is, or looking for ad space to buy on, or to look for advertising opportunities, because hey, people that like my site are also into technology. So if I'm looking at technology sites, I can make draw some conclusions there. In market segments basically means that these what percentage of people are in the market to purchase something in these categories. So computers and peripherals, or consumer electronics and mobile phones, that is something that I've used this for in the past, was to find maybe partnership opportunities. Say if you're an e-commerce site and maybe there's some way that you could come up with a combination product with a financial services company that you package it together because people are interested in both. And then your other categories are just going to be other sites that they viewed, and you can click into this to show you the reports. It's going to be the same reports that you've seen in the past that we've went through, but it's some pretty cool information to get a better understanding of who your customers are, because people do operate outside of your website, and it's cool to see what they are doing. So if we go to the affinity, we can see which are performing best. Let's sort it by conversion rate, and the news junkies and avid men's media fans, almost a 2% conversion rate, which is, let's see if we can use some of our information that we learned earlier to make a comparison to site average. And then we'll go to e-commerce conversion rate. The average of this site is 0.27. We're seeing movie lovers, it's almost 5% higher. Let's go show 100 different rows, and we can scroll down to see who's performing the best. And here they are, the news junkies right here. 500% higher conversion rate than the site average. So I'm going to look for opportunities to either market on there, write content for them, or find ways that I can get in front of more of these people, because even though it is a small number, if I can boost that up to maybe even in the top 50, getting 18,000 sessions, I'm going to make a lot of money doing that. So those are the kind of information and piece of information that you're going to be looking for in these reports. The next report that we're going to look at is the geo category. So if we click first on geo, you'll see that there's language and location broken down. Now, if you're only selling in the US, language is not going to be as useful to you, but you would be very surprised to see what kind of information that you can see about the settings that people use on their browser when looking at your website. So if we click on this, you're going to see that, as you would expect for a company selling products in the US, primarily the people viewing their website are going to be people speaking English in the US. But then you'll start to see numbers that are higher than a full 1%, speaking French, this is English again, and then Spanish almost at 1%. So not saying that you need to cater your content completely to these languages, but maybe having a translate option if you start to see these numbers grow, or if you're running ads, you might see that people speaking these languages are purchasing at a higher rate, so you might want to start targeting your ads within those languages. Now, and just like how we talked about in all of the mechanics section about how to manipulate these reports, you can go through and sort by a pie chart. You can add a secondary dimension. So let's go back. So let's say we want to add a secondary dimension of source and medium. So I want to see where people from France, or that are speaking French, sorry, this is the language, where they're coming from. So I'm going to add this again, source medium. So primarily they're coming from Google. There's some coming from Bing, but as you would expect, Google driving the most traffic for this, and then French Google.fr is also sending a good amount of traffic. So this is where you can dive in and start looking at interesting pieces of information. Now if we go into the location tab, this is something that's incredibly useful when talking about, say, what conferences to go to, or where you should be targeting your ads, or if you, let's say, are running a promotion, what cities you want to target with those TV ads. So right now we're seeing 77% of people that are coming to this website are viewing from the United States. Now that's helpful to see that right here you can see almost 94% of transactions are coming from the US, but the US is pretty big, and there's different regions that might operate completely different. So two numbers that I like to keep on an eye on when I'm looking at these reports is, first of all, transactions, revenue, e-commerce conversion rate, or if you have a goal set up, that conversion rate, to start seeing which areas are going to be the most helpful for you to start targeting, if that's what you're looking at this report for. So as we can see here, the bigger states usually do send the most amount of traffic, unless you're a regional type company, maybe you're a restaurant and you're looking at your Google Analytics for your restaurant. But if you look on the right hand side here, you can sort the e-commerce conversion rate by the highest. So right here we're already seeing a really cool piece of information. So Alaska and South Dakota, yeah, they have high conversion rates, but not sending a ton of visitors. If you go down here, Colorado, sending almost 2% of the total traffic, or the total number of sessions to this website. 17 transactions, which is a % conversion rate. So you might say, hey, let's go ahead and start running AdWords ads, or whatever ads that you might have at your disposal, TV ads, billboards, in Colorado, and see how they perform, because it looks like whatever we're selling is really resonating with that audience. Another opportunity here is New Jersey. So almost 4% of the total conversions, over 2.5% of the total sessions, and they're sending a good amount of transactions. So you can, now let's go ahead into the Colorado section. Now this is going to go down even even deeper. So it's going to break it down by city. So Denver, right about at average of what the whole state of Colorado is. And you can see it's getting smaller and smaller, these numbers for visitors and transactions. But still, you can start to see, hey, if maybe I only want to target one city within a state, I would probably go with Denver here. But let's go back to take a look at the states sending more traffic. So let's start with California. Again, California, huge state. Not every county or city in California is going to be operating the same. So here's a good example. Los Angeles, sending the most amount of traffic, relatively low conversion rate. It's lower than the site average, which you can see right under here. But if we go down to San Diego, okay, San Diego almost sending as many conversions as Los Angeles, almost more than double the conversion rate. So let's see what's going on here in San Diego, and we can go even deeper, which is and just see the city. So you can see it here marked on the map. So that might be an opportunity for you to look at. So location is something that I use all the time. You can spend hours and hours on here just analyzing information. When you're looking at international traffic, it's especially useful to look at the cities, because there's a huge discrepancy between how people act, or maybe the number of conversions that you're seeing from main populated cities in Europe especially. So take the opportunity and take the time to dive into those reports. See where, don't just say, oh wow, Canada's sending a ton of traffic and visitors, but it might be really only densely sending traffic from one or two cities. And if you're going to be buying ads, or if you're going to be focusing on those cities for outreach or for community building, you're going to want to know what cities those are, rather than just saying I'm going to contact everybody I know in Canada. So those are some things that have worked for me in the past, and like I said, definitely worth the time to dig into. I've gotten a few requests from users that had questions about Google Webmaster Tools, so I wanted to just briefly go over some of the key features that I use it for. Probably not going to be able to create a whole class on just Webmaster Tools, but I'll show you the features that you can still get a lot out of. So what Webmaster Tools does is it provides you with information about how Google sees your site. So this is the main dashboard, and once you have everything set up and verified, there's a few different methods that you can use to verify it that I'll post links to. But you can see the current status. There's crawl errors, search queries, sitemaps. Search queries is really where I spend most of my time when I'm in Google Webmaster Tools. The crawl errors are helpful because you can see if there's anything. Usually there's not a ton here, but I can see like for a certain category that I may have deleted, it will show me that it's giving a 404 code, so I might just need to redirect those to the current pages, and that's a quick fix. You can see some of the crawl stats also inside of this. You can test your robots.txt file. You can see your sitemaps and things like that. So I can see here's a sitemap that I submitted. There's 3 errors. Let's see what those errors are. Just some more 404 code, so I can go back into my site and redirect those pages. But really what you're going to be getting a ton of use out of is the search queries. Because Google doesn't provide as much keyword specific data in Google Analytics anymore, this is going to be where you're finding most of that information. So I don't have a ton of traffic coming to the site yet because it's just been live for less than a month, but you can see the number of impressions each keyword has, the number of clicks it gets, the click-through rate, and the average position. And what you can use this for is, say if I see Google AdWords tutorial for beginners, its average position is number 9. I think that might be something I want to rank for. So I can start creating more content around that query or different variations of that query to try to drive those impressions up, hopefully drive that ranking up, because as your average position increases, you'll get more impressions and hopefully more clicks as you get closer to the top of that search result. And then you can see your top pages, and I can see that my homepage, which is usually the case unless you have a really high quality piece of content internally on your site, you can see kind of just what pages are driving the most impressions and clicks and click-through rate. But the other thing that you can look at is the links to your site. So you can see what other websites are linking to your site, how your link or how your data is linked, and what pages they're linked to. So a lot of times it's just going into Webmaster Tools and clicking around and seeing what information you can use. But the search queries and links to your site are really beneficial because you can see what pages they're linking to. So if I click on Marketing Web and I can see, oh, they're linking to my homepage. They've only linked one time. Maybe we can get a couple more links out of it, or maybe I can look for other sites in that niche. So those are some quick ideas that you can use Webmaster Tools for. And like I said, make sure to link to some tutorials about how to set that up on your site and how to link that with Google Analytics if you want to do that. As we move on down the list, the next one we're getting up to is the Keywords tab. So if you click the Keywords tab, it's going to unveil paid and organic. So you can probably deduct what those two, what the difference is between those two, but in case you can't, paid would be things like would be PPC campaigns, pay-per-click using AdWords or Bing or something along those lines. And you can actually see the keywords and break it down on a keyword basis to see which ones are performing well. At the end of the day, you're going to want to look at revenue, conversion rate, transactions, but another big key performance indicator is the engagement, so the behavior, bounce rate, pages per session, average session duration. Those can be indicators about what content is performing well. Maybe they're not converting, and you can look for opportunities to fix that page here and there, or the pages that are getting sent, or ads that are being sent to that page, or vice versa, and see if there's anywhere you can improve. But you can see that all of these keywords are sending traffic, the average amount of time. That's very valuable information. And then if you go into match search query, this is actually the searches that the person put in. So if you're familiar with AdWords, you know that you can either do phrase match, broad match, or exact match when you're doing match types. And just a shameless plug, if you do want to learn more about AdWords, I do have another course on Udemy, so be sure to check that out if you are interested. But in the match queries, this is actually what people searched, and you can get more information rather than just saying, I know that people searched with the word DeWalt parts. They're actually searching DeWalt replacement parts, so that can be an opportunity for you to add those into your ad groups. And then you can see the source, only using Google for this, medium, only cost per click, campaign, and this is similar to the other campaign because, like I said, this is the only ad campaign that we're using URL tagging, and it's only because AdWords automatically adds that tracking layer onto their campaigns. So that is paid. And then going into organic, this used to be a huge treasure trove of information, really helpful for SEO value because you could see what is the most valuable keywords that are getting sent to your site from organic search. Right now, only giving you a small percentage of data from organic search. As you can see, not provided 12,000, which is almost 75% of the total searches. So if you want to make deductions on that other 25%, you can. Don't really advise it because the data is so skewed and doesn't always perform that well if you do make decisions based on that. But nonetheless, you can come here and kind of look for anecdotal information, see that people are coming to you for similar things that you're going after in paid. There's specific parts that you might say, hey, let's start an ad campaign on that, or let's start trying to create more content around these type of pages. But as you can see, there's almost 3,000 results, and Google comes out with stats all the time about what percentage of searches are new, have never been seen before. So you're going to see searches in here that are so long tail, so specific that it might not be that relevant to you, but you can start to like I said, use anecdotal information to come up with ideas based on some of these really long-tailed searches, like where to find router adapter plate for skilled with the serial number. And as you get down to these searches that have only had one or two searches in quantity, you'll see all of the different options, and maybe it gives you ideas for page titles, or a blog post or something like that. But wouldn't want to make any real big decisions based on this data. Okay, moving on down, from search engine optimization, we're going to jump into behavior. So if you click on the overview of the behavior tab, you'll see like a normal overview report. You can filter by site content, the page, the actual like URL or string of that page, by page title. This can be useful too if you're doing search engine optimization to see which pages are performing better. Site search. Now, this site isn't tracking site search, but if you go to your admin section, there's a setting, and I'll have a link to it, that you can enable site search. And this is really helpful because, like I mentioned in the previous section in search engine optimization, Google isn't providing a ton of information. But one way to kind of get in front of some of that data is by analyzing your on-site search. So you can see what people are searching for on your site so that you maybe can cater to those queries that you're seeing more often, or just being able to categorize or group more efficiently based on what people are searching for on your site. So again, it's very helpful to do that. I'll link to a how-to on how to set that up. It's really simple. You just do a search on your site and see what that the search character is for your site, and then you add it in there, and it will start automatically detecting that information. And then you can go into the events category, and that will show you, for this, we're only tracking the live help, and you can see that there's 2,000 times. If you click in view full report, it will jump you into one of these deeper reports. We're not going to do that right now, but and then next we're going to go into the behavior flow. Now this is similar to like when we talked about in acquisition about the user flow, but this is going to show you based on landing pages where they go after that. So if we want to say, I want to see where people are going from after they go to the store page, highlight traffic through here, and it will show you that they're going through, let's see, explore traffic through here. So let's see what they're going through. They're going from a blog to the store, and you can start to see some information. Again, I don't use these reports that often, and maybe I'm just not haven't found a specific use case that has worked for me. It just seems like a cool way to visualize the information and not a ton of actionable information. But if you do find any use cases, feel free to share them with me or put them in the comments, because I would love to share them with the rest of the people in this course to see if there's anybody else that's in a similar niche that might be able to get some insight from this. Alrighty, next up we're going to jump into the acquisition section. Now, I don't like to play favorites, but acquisition, this category is kind of my favorite, just because you get to really dive into the who and what of who's sending traffic to your website and what they're doing on your website. So this is the stuff that you can really start to pull actionable data from and determine what channels that you should start focusing on more or focusing on less, which ones are providing you with the most return on your investment. So right here, if you jump into the acquisition section, you're going to be dropped into the overview. So this is just going to show you, like it says, an overview of the data in this section. You can determine the graphs or display the graphs based on top channels. You can also go by sources, mediums, top sources, top mediums, if you want to see it that way. Again,